I did it. I finally did it! Through all of the blood, sweat, and tears, it's finally over. What's that? Oh, I didn't tell him yet. I hit level 60 before the Cataclysm. So far, my time spent in World of Warcraft has been one full of indecision. I'm the kind of person who ends up making a lot of characters by accident. Making plans with one character, losing interest while I'm playing, then playing another character. Rinse and repeat. I've done this in retail, and I've done this in Classic. Not once have I spent enough time on a single character to get them to any sort of max level. But now that's changed. I just hit level 60 in Classic WoW. While that might not be max level in Wrath Classic, I still hit the base game max level, so that's a victory in my eyes. I figured, since I have a tough enough time sticking to one character for too long, why don't I just add Classic WoW to the list of games I make a journey and experience series off of? Truth be told, it worked wonders. With that said, my time up to level 30 was definitely unique. From experiencing how the game plays, to trying Classic dungeons for the first time, and even seeing all the zones I've never been in before. Mostly because there's pretty much no reason to go into those zones in retail. Regardless, I got up to level 30 in the last video. I saw quite a few zones in Kalimdor, and just a few in the Eastern Kingdoms at the time. Each had its own look and vibe that made them unique. But now, how about we hop into the recap of my journey? Hi there, my name is MegaMadVlad, and welcome to my journey and experience into Classic WoW. Wind Totem Quest. Just like the start of any journey, it all starts with waking up, stubbing your toe, and then logging on to World of Warcraft. Not always in that order. Hopping back onto my level 30 troll shaman Vladathar, it was finally time to go after the final elemental totem, the Wind Totem. I found out the quest giver was in Thousand Needles, so I flew on down there to snatch it up. Based on my experience with the previous totems, I wondered just where they were going to have me go. The Earth Totem was pretty much 20 steps from the quest giver. The Fire Totem was 2 locations in the zone right next to the quest giver. And finally, the Water Totem, more like the Hell Totem. They had me going back and forth between Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms not once, but twice. What the hell was I in for now? Oh, they just gave it to me? No strings attached? What sorcery is this? Well, that was easy. Wind Totem acquired. Shimmering Flats. On my travels, I found my quest trying to take me over to a lot of different zones. Not just that, but vastly different directions at that. That was similar to my time in the Shimmering Flats. A raceway where it doesn't matter if you're Horde or Alliance. A big track that's all about speed. Just watch out for all of the enemies that are higher level than myself, and the fact that there are so many people here in need of help. That thing I mentioned just a bit ago about my quests taking me all over the place? Yeah, these quests did that for sure. One of these very quests wanted me to travel over to a zone called Stranglethorn Vale, all the way over in the Eastern Kingdoms. So, travel there I did. Stranglethorn Vale is scary. Why is everything so much higher level than me? Ah! Spirit of Xandar. All right, where do I need to go for the next? Wait, what just happened? I am a god! And now the buff is gone. Is that one of those world buffs I've heard about? That was one hell of a boost in stats there. New weapons. So at one point, I had a quest to take out a certain enemy type for them to drop some shrunken heads. Turns out, I wasn't the only one going after them. With some competition in the area, there's only one thing I can do. Take out a lot of the other enemies and hope that one specific enemy spawns in their place. A little side note here is that I've been using maces all this time. I just got an axe. I kind of want to build that up too. You know what happens when you switch to a new weapon type that your character has no training in? That's right. You miss. A lot. Might as well get some extra weapon training in while I'm working on this quest. By the time I got all the shrunken heads I needed, my competitor was still working on theirs. Might have something to do with me stealing all the kills. Journey to the Badlands. Alright, so one of the quest chains I got wanted me to head to some place called the Badlands. It's a few zones north of Stranglethorn Vale, so to hand it in, I had some traveling to do. I hopped on my mount and started my trek north. Just had to try and keep away from all the enemies that were higher level than myself. Unfortunately, that didn't end up as I hoped. Running through Duskwood was a bit scarier than I had imagined it would be. Seeing all the low-level enemies in the area, I was feeling pretty confident of passing through the zone without issues. That feeling came to a crashing halt when I was hit off my mount by Alliance NPCs. They were everywhere, some lower level, some higher. There was nothing I could do. So I ran back to my body and made it out of Duskwood. While tougher than I expected, I figured the rest of the way would be a bit easier than that. So onward I went, going further north to eventually reach... Wait, what was that? Hold on. Oh, I died to skulls. It appears I had my work cut out for me here, so I decided to do the unthinkable. I looked up the path to get to the Badlands online, and it told me I had to go through the burning steps anyway. I still had my work cut out for me. Alright, next step of the plan. There's a pathway that I need to take. Enemies as far as the eye can see, all much higher level than me. What's a troll shaman to do? I'm not a rogue, so I can't just stealth my way to victory. Oh no, I have one way to continue forward here. Dead walking. Hopefully with a lot less dying involved. I was on my mount, pushing forward to pass the enemies while they all attacked me. I was hit off my mount, but kept moving. In the end, I made it past all the enemies alive. It was a miracle. Now for the rest of the zone. I eventually came across Black Rock Mountain and went inside. Working my way through, I made it to the other end and found myself in Searing Gorge. A slightly easier location than the steps. Just one zone away from the Badlands. I was almost there. So I made it to the Badlands, found the guy, handed in the quest, and decided to start questing in there since it was more manageable. Mission accomplished. Level 40. While I was questing and leveling up, I had two goals to achieve. The main goal was obviously hitting level 60 before Cataclysm Classic dropped, but the secondary goal was to hit level 40, a mere 10 levels from where I left off in the last video. The reason for this goal? So I could get out of leather armor and finally wear mail armor. Since I'm playing as an enhancement shaman, I'm going to be up close and personal with the enemies. Because of that, I'll be getting hit a lot. So what better thing to do than wear stronger armor, right? I reached level 40 while handing in a quest, and I gotta say, hitting complete quest never felt so good. Oh yeah, now to get some more mail armor. Questing in Arathi Highlands. Now I've gotten quests before that wanted me to go all over the place. Sometimes I've gotten quests from the same location that wanted me to go to vastly different zones an entire continent away. When I get quests in a zone that want me to do things in that same zone, it feels better. It's a lot less travel time and normally something that's more on the speedy side just to hand it in. That said, I never thought I would end up eating my words at one point. Cue the Arathi Highlands. A decent looking zone, a fair bit of enemies, and Horde and Alliance locations to move around. Nothing too out of the ordinary, right? Maybe for a majority of quests there. But what if I told you there's one quest chain there that sucked the life right out of me? This chain wanted me to go from Hammerfall, the Horde base in the northeastern part of the map, all the way to Stromgard Keep at the southwestern part of the map. Again, not something I'm unfamiliar with, but here's where things start to spiral out of control. What if I told you that one single quest chain that had you going back and forth between those 2 points not once, not twice, 4 times? That's 4 times of going back and forth between the farthest points on the map. That's here and here. And let me tell you, that trip is not the shortest thing in the world. Rant over. New mount. After getting so far into this game, I could finally get a better mount to move faster. I think it was at level 40 that I could go for it, but I was kind of overseas at the time and figured I might as well build up my money a bit more. I didn't know how much it was going to cost me. Eventually, I made my way back to Senjin Village to snatch up the next level of mount. Oh boy, do I tell you that while 40% to 60% doesn't sound like a very big jump in speed, it is very noticeable. I then proceeded to get jump scared by voodoo. Dungeon time. Hey, you know what? I'm basically halfway there and haven't done any dungeons yet. I think I should fix that. So while I'm flying back to the Badlands to quest some more, I queue up for a random dungeon. I make it all the way to the Badlands to snatch up some quests, and then the queue pops. It's go time. The Wicked Grotto. Let's see how this goes. Going through the dungeon and picking apart all the groups of enemies that we come across. Not too many issues at all outside of losing connection to the internet mid-dungeon. Despite that, I got back in, caught up to the rest of the group, and we continued on. Got to our final boss of the dungeon, Lord Viletongue. Outside of his size difference and different name, he looked like one of his little minions in every way. Beat him up and everyone dipped. I guess beating a single boss and dipping happens a lot in WoW dungeons? Well, while that ended up happening again, this wasn't some sort of deterrent for me. Oh no, I was going to queue up for random dungeons as much as I could. I did need to level up, and not only are dungeons pretty good at that with group experience, but also I get to experience more dungeons in Classic. It's basically a win-win. So my days from this point onward basically go as follows. Get home from work, hop on the game, queue up for a dungeon while questing, do a dungeon, get dinner, hop back on the game, queue up for a dungeon while questing, do a dungeon, end the day. That was the overall schedule for a while there. Because of that, I ended up doing quite a few dungeons for this video. All of them vary in how well the runs went. Regardless, I ended up having some of the same dungeons while in this process. But let me tell you my experience with a certain one of those dungeons. This dungeon is called Blackrock Depths. We enter, we start moving forward and taking on packs of enemies. And then it happens. While the tank is grabbing another pack of enemies, the healer also runs and grabs their own pack. Oh, you could probably guess how well this is about to go. So the healer dies. We have 2 full packs of ads now, down a healer, and things are starting to look pretty dire. The tank starts yelling to let the tank pull before DPS and healing starts, but it was too late. The warlock falls, then goes down the tank, then myself. All that's left is the other priest. Lo and behold, they fall as well. It was a massacre. Probably doesn't help that I thought I had my totems out, but I must have misclicked because I didn't realize they weren't there until it was too late. Whoops. After the wipe, it's only now I realize how dire that wipe truly was. I release my spirit and begin to run back. And run, and run, and run. And you get the idea. This trip back is longer than any boss fight in the game thus far. Since I only queued up into this dungeon, I didn't actually know the way back at this point, so I had to follow the others to find my way there. Because just getting back into the dungeon is a maze in itself. Sure, you can follow the arrow back to your body, but that'll just lead you on top of where it actually is. Where the dungeon is underground. Thankfully, I understood that concept pretty fast. Made it back to the dungeon to notice the healer dipped. They weren't kicked, they straight up dipped. We got a new healer and things went so much smoother after that. Took out a boss and everyone dipped again. Alright, fair enough. That's the story of my first time in Blackrock Depths. That's right, my first time in there. In the time it took to get up to level 60, I ended up running that dungeon 5 times. 3 of those times went very smoothly. The 4th time we also wiped. Thankfully, by that time, I understood how to make my way back there. At this point, if Blackrock Depths was a person, I would not be friends with them. Level 60. As I got ever closer to that fabled level 60, I had a plan. Once I reached level 59, I would attain my final level in the Blasted Lands itself. I figured it would be poetic to finish up the journey right at the Dark Portal itself. It was going to be perfect. That was, until I found out the enemies in the zone weren't pushing level 60. Oh no, they were in the low to mid 50s. This meant it was hit or miss if I got any experience from them at all. So, needless to say, this plan didn't work out quite as well as I'd hoped. I even grabbed up a few quests in the zone to see if they would help, but 2 of them basically told me it was near impossible to complete in general. Apparently the drop rates on the required items was abysmal. I didn't feel like staying in the zone long enough to see if I could even finish those quests. It was time to move on to something that would actually raise my level. I queued up for a random dungeon. So here's the thing, there are 9 dungeons available to me at level 59. One of them happens to be the first dungeon in the Burning Crusade called Hellfire Ramparts. I don't want that one to pop, but since there's 8 other dungeons available to me, what are the chances that I end up in that very specific one, right? Right? Wrong! That was obviously the one that popped. So I got a little bit of a tease involved with TBC before actually hopping into the expansion. So my time in it showed that I was pretty undergeared as I died a few times in it. But honestly, this dungeon was more fun than all of the base game dungeons I've done. It was more hectic. I think there was some mechanics involved, and the bosses were pretty unique compared to what I fought against before. There's a dragon you take out along with its rider. I didn't fight anything like that before. This was honestly fun and just gets me more excited for the first expansion. That said, I didn't level up in this run. It filled like half the experience bar. So to avoid accidentally running into that dungeon again, I decided to have quests to finish off the rest of my XP bar. So I went to Western Plaguelands to finish this journey, grabbed up some quests, and got to work. It only took a few of them, and at last I did it. Level 60 achieved. Seriously, why didn't anyone tell me Classic was this much fun? Classic gives a more hardcore experience than any modern MMO. It's not as hardcore as other MMOs of the time. Those were brutal with levels and experience being lost after dying. It just has a sort of vibe that feels good. Going around questing in zones I've never been in was a trip. While I haven't been paying any particular attention to the stories from them, they give me a great excuse to go out exploring. The zones all have very distinct feels to them, a large variety of enemies to come across, elemental damage being taken into consideration, and quests that get you to go to other zones. The base game of Classic WoW honestly feels like a fully realized video game. Imagine that. That's not to say it was all sunshine and rainbows. If you end up grabbing even one more enemy than you were hoping for, then it turns into a test of survival, bringing all of your skills and knowledge of the game to bear, only to find out that no matter how well you can play, you still end up dying because of too many enemies. World of Warcraft takes a very loot-based approach. The way it works is the better loot you get, the stronger you become as they affect your various stats. The bigger the number, the stronger you are, and gear affects that very heavily. Add in various buffs and debuffs, and the combat can feel very intuitive. It just has a slower pace than its retail counterpart, but arguably, it's easier to understand and learn from because of that. Outside of all of that, I had a really good time playing through the base game. I wish there was more of a story attached to it that I could follow, but the main appeal I got from it was the random shenanigans that could occur. You never truly knew what was going to happen, or what other players were going to do. It really added to the experience. Since I had a bit of an accidental tease from the first expansion through the first dungeon in the Burning Crusade, I can honestly say I'm really looking forward to hopping into it. We'll see how it goes. With that said, my next journey will be in the Burning Crusade. See you all on the other side.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.